Your body is an intelligence that your cute little mind will never understand. And so when you attend a breathwork session, it is possible that you might have a big emotional cathartic release and it might feel awesome. There's a rainbow of possibilities. There might be pleasure, you might orgasm. There might be grief, rage, frustration, jealousy, fear. And I think it works because
Kyla Gagnon is the Breathwork Queen, founder of Breathe with Kyla and host of the Reclaimed podcast. Once a top fitness competitor and cover model, she's now a somatic mentor.
In terms of looking at a facilitator and breathwork in general, what would you consider green flags and then red flags?
red flag is someone who is claiming that they can fix something. If the word fix is in there, walk away. There's nothing to be fixed. But someone who's making like a claim, if they use the word may or can, it's possible.
So what am I going to choose that's going to break me out of this box?
It starts with us. When we drop into these breath practices, we're accessing the subconscious spaces in our body.
What's your go-to practice to keep you grounded?
I meditate every day.
What advice would you give to somebody who's currently feeling really disconnected from their inner power?
I would ask,
Hello. Welcome to another episode of Built for This, Stories of a Maverick. I'm super excited to welcome Kyla Gagnon to the podcast today. She's a Victoria-based breathwork facilitator, empowerment coach, and host of Reclaimed podcast. We're going to dig into all things that she does, including helping women reclaim their power through somatic practices and breathwork, and her story along the way that made everything that she is today. So welcome.
Thank you, Jenna. Nice to be here.
I'm excited. I would love to start off. So I guess context for everybody, I got to do a breathwork with you, feels like about a month ago, and I loved it. And a close friend of ours has done a course with you, and I believe your partner as well in Victoria. But I would love to kind of understand sort of, where it began for you. I know this wasn't always your career path, so would love to chat about kind of what brought you to this place.
Yeah, not always my career path. I ran a personal training business. It was all I wanted to do. That was all I wanted to do in high school, and all of my friends were registering for university and college. I was like, God, how do you know what you want to do? What?
Yeah.
And all I was interested in at that time was fitness, and I loved people, and that's like quintessential. I wanted to help people, but I didn't there was nothing else I thought I possibly wanted to do. And both of my parents, thank God, were on the same page, co-parenting, but neither of them were like, you have to go to university. They were both very much like, gosh, take your time. You have so much time. What do you love? And I was loving fitness. And so I started teaching. Well, I started studying at 18, and my first working opportunity in fitness was teaching step class. I don't know if you ever went to step class.
I think everybody's had a step experience of some kind.
I think anyone over the age of 35 has done a step class.
Yeah.
So I hated teaching it for many reasons, but it was my in. And I followed that. And then when I was 20, my mom was diagnosed with brain cancer just right before my 20th birthday. And so I stopped all of my studies. I stopped all of everything. I just stopped everything. And she ended up passing away just 3 weeks after my birthday. And so I took about a year off of life and just I survived. And when I was ready to go back into the world, I felt like I should go into nursing because my mom was a nurse and we had really exceptional nurse care while she was sick. And I just felt like that was my duty, And so I went back to school and did all my prerequisites and got ready to go into nursing. And I was just miserable. And eventually, thank God, my dad was like, what are you doing? This is not what you want. Let's go back to that fitness thing. Because it was also early 2000s. It wasn't a super popular job to be a trainer. But thankfully for him, I dove back in. And by 22, I was running a personal training business and did that for 16 years and really loved it and had a good time. And I was competing in fitness and I was working with a supplement company and traveling all over the States and fitness expos and, meeting Arnold and doing these crazy things and super rad photo shoots and magazines and all of the stuff that I had dreamed of a 17, 18-year-old girl was coming true. And in all of that, I was like, oh, none of this actually matters that much. It's not changing anything. I had this dream of being in a magazine, and I was. And I remember it feeling cool for a minute and then feeling like not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
So I started to really recognize that there was something missing. Like what I thought was it and would bring me joy and fulfillment wasn't it. And I was noticing conversations with clients and coworkers just being very surface, superficial about the body. What does it look like?
Yeah.
Nobody seemed to care, like, how does it feel? How are your emotions? Do you need to talk about something? It was very superficial.
And I'm curious, kind of going through like that type of phase and having a passion for fitness myself, and then seeing other people take it to levels in terms of competitions, and then obviously aesthetics being the main focus. Like it, and going back to what's inside, it's definitely not about what's inside. You're getting judged purely on what you look like, and is everything symmetrical?
Yeah.
And all those pieces. And I know, I would say generally more female than male in terms of, I'll call it like the physique bikini competition. I've seen a lot of damage done. So I'm curious kind of through your experience doing that, some people can handle it better, some can navigate, being on a really tight regimen and having that like caloric intake and deficit and hyper focus on measurements and the posing, and it maybe not completely, damage the way that they see themselves or kind of body dysmorphia, but, being in it for a long time, I can't imagine that it doesn't alter you in some kind of way where you need to have a sort of deep check in about what you're up to.
It took a toll for me because I would have started my first competition. I would have been 21. So like barely a girl. Like I literally, still in that
false sense of idea of who you are at that point.
Well, I was still like, do I have like, I have boobs, I have a body. What is this? Am I pretty? Do I look like a boy? Am I still a kid? Like I was such a weird place to be. And then to have my mother just pass, I was so seeking. I was like, give me something that I can control. That's what it was. That's what fitness then became for me. It started as, oh, I love this. And then it became this thing I could control. No one was going to take that from me. And oh my gosh, to stand on stage and be judged solely on what you look like, to be going to photo shoots and having the expectation that if you don't, and actually having emails sent to you from the team that you're on, if you don't show up looking your absolute best, don't expect to be in front of the camera. Like just so much.
Yeah.
And that went on I competed for about 11 years.
Wow.
So it went on for a long time.
Yeah.
And it definitely took its toll, which played two parts for me. It like kept me protected from, which I'll go into when I talk about how I found breath work. But after my mom died, I essentially, which I didn't know then and I very much know now, closed off a lot, went into super protection mode and kept myself really busy and distracted by fitness, by just the busiest possible schedule I could give myself, by all of the wrong people who kept me distracted and disconnected from my heart and totally in my head. I was closed off from the whole world. And so like the regimented diets, like you talk about, the regimented training, like that served a really good purpose because I was like, I can do this, follow the rules. I don't need to think. I don't need to feel. I don't need to do anything. But it also kept me so disconnected from who I was.
Yeah. And I think it's such an interesting point you bring up. And I think, and I mean, now you notice it a lot too, not just with females, but with males being really disconnected and this like really struggle between masculine, feminine, divide, polarity, all the things going on. But I think especially if you're generally A-type, which I definitely am, and like going to get stuff done, the way you're always going to distract and then kind of find your worth is like, if I can continue to do this at a really high level, no one can really touch me. And so like, let's just keep this distance. And then I don't really have to do that until I'm curious of sort of what was break point, stop point, where all of a sudden you're like, uh-oh, I'm not okay.
Yeah. Well, it was accidental. It was breath work. I started teaching yoga. So I came to this point where I was like, there has to be more. There's a depth that I'm missing. And then I started teaching yoga, started to feel this extra depth of people. We were, meeting some emotions in yoga. We were celebrating more what the body could do versus like what it looked like. There was a shift. I'm like, oh, maybe we're here. And then I ended up attending a breathwork session that I didn't know what it was. I totally didn't want to go. And I went to this breathwork session in 2019. And so my mom died in like 2003. So 16 years later, I go to this breathwork session and very, very quickly realize that there was a massive part of me that I had not yet met. And so it was in this like at 90-minute session that everything that I'd shut off came smacked in my face.
Yeah.
And it felt obviously like quite challenging and emotional, but also incredibly powerful. And like a remembering of like, oh, this is me. Holy shit. Okay, I can come back to this. And I mean, there's a whole story to that breathwork journey that we don't need to go into. It was impactful enough for me that I left that session and I burned my business to the ground. Closed the doors, shut it down.
Yeah.
I knew in that moment that I'd found the moreness, the depth. I'd found myself, and I wanted to give other people the same opportunity that I just experienced in that session. And I've never looked back. And I mean, it was such a wild time. I literally shut down my only source of income. It was the most like follow your gut moment of my life. I'm very grateful for it. But
I'm curious kind of what happened in your body at that time, because I had something similar in a way, and that I've been kind of doing some work, and I knew I wasn't there, but I'm definitely, I can relate when you're like, it was the control piece. Like I have that in spades where like, ooh, if I can just curate this outcome, that's that safety mechanism. And I remember, going head to head with somebody that I worked with, and it was not at all what I thought it was going to be, or a reason why I would just walk out and never look back. But it was such a combative values misalignment where I was like, that is fundamentally not who I am. And I just like felt this like wave come over me. And I was like, I'm done. No plan in sight. Like I was trained to be a spin instructor on the side. I'm like, I think I'm just going to teach spin for a bit and we'll see what happens. And then like a couple months later, I woke up. I'm like, I know exactly what I'm going to do. And then, hence kind of like building my business from there. But there was nowhere to run or nowhere to hide anymore. And I knew that if I continued, it was like an ultimate betrayal of myself.
Yeah. Wow. Beautiful. For me, and it's one of these things, like you just explained it probably to the best you can with English language, like how that felt, because there's not often words for it. It's a felt sensation. You're like, how do I make that make sense to someone who isn't in my body? But because I've had situations like that, I'm like, I totally get that.
Yeah.
And it was the same. Like it was a level of emotion and like a remembrance is the only way I can say it. There's this feeling in me that is like my soul has remembered the mission. Every cell in my body is like, yep, sorry, we forgot for a second. We're back. And it's like, well, once I know that, I can't unknow it. It's like plant medicine. It's like, oh, you see how the universe works and how time doesn't exist. And you're like, well, now I know that. So can't explain it in English language, but I know it. So it's just fact. And I will now move in that direction.
Yeah.
And so it was like my whole body was alive. And there was just this non-verbal knowing.
Yeah. Kind of like an off the cuff breathwork session you did. Were you in a retreat? Sort of, how did it kind of, because that's a big thing to have if that's your first session. And then what to do with all the things happening in your body at the same time is also a lot to process and know, like, did I have a break or is this actually,
am I okay? No, it was my acupuncturist, and I was seeing her, I don't know, maybe once a month for acupuncture. And she kept inviting me to this breathwork session that she was hosting. And she didn't really give much information about it. She just kept inviting me to this full moon breathwork session. And I was like, well, it sounds like kind of cool and lame. Like, I don't even know what breathwork is. I was teaching yoga at the time. So I was like, how is that different than what I'm doing? Kind of had my like altruistic, like, I know more than you. I just had no interest, but I also wasn't asking questions because I had no interest.
Yep.
And it was maybe like the fourth or fifth time that she invited me that something in me was like, you should go to that. So I went to that and everything changed. Yeah.
And then so you shut down your business. You now know that this is the feeling you want to give people. Was there other modalities you looked at, or you're like, breathwork will be kind of like the mechanism in which I create?
Pretty much like, yeah, breathwork will be it. And through that, like in a deep breathwork training, I mean, there's trauma work, there's somatic work, like you're getting like tendrils of other modalities and practices and teachings that you then can take and deepen your knowledge on, which, yeah, I mean, I will. Like, IFS, internal family systems and parts work, is something that I'm super curious to deepen into. And yeah, but no, breath work. I'm like, this is what it was for me. And if I think, I mean, it's literally what keeps us alive. How is this not the most important thing? There's so much we can do with it. If someone's giving birth or in labor, like what's the one thing that you're told to focus on? Your breath.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating how disconnected people are from their bodies. And I think
Yeah.
once you learn more about the nervous system and having been in really dark situations, being in emotionally abusive relationship and realizing now, because you have hindsight, when you're in it, of course, you have no idea what's happening, but realizing like, like, oh yeah, I know what fight, flight, or freeze is, but when you're constantly in fight,
Mm-hmm.
like, to recognize the difference in your body once you regulate your nervous system and breathe, it's wild what happens in your body, just, like, instant I remember just, like, tears just, like, falling from my face. It wasn't crying, it was, like, this weird release coming out every way, like, it could. I'm like, "Oh." Like, I didn't know that this was the feeling.
Yeah. Oh, I have so many goosebumps for that because you're right. So many people don't know that feeling. We're so like we live in such a stimulated, fast, over abundant world. And maybe that was a weird word to use because we generally think of it as such a wonderful thing, but it's like there's so much.
It's too much. Everything's used to pressing a button. I want it now. I get it
Hmm.
now. There's no waiting. Even like phones, cell phones. Before,
Yeah.
you could not be around a phone. And if you were out, you were out.
Yes.
And like you got a piece of mail, not, 80
Yeah.
emails. And like it's just interesting the pace
Yeah.
of how the world worked before. And even going into meetings now and seeing teams that are stressed and they can't even focus in a meeting
Hmm.
because they're worried about an email or a phone, and we didn't
Hmm.
exercise, and I was like, "Okay, this meeting will be no phones, no cell phones." And you could see, like, the
Yeah.
like, the coaching starting to happen. I'm like, "We're not no one's gonna die because you're not gonna be by this, everybody knows." And they were still really itchy before we got started, and I'm like, "I'm gonna ask you guys to do something weird. I know some of you are gonna be into it, some of you are gonna be like, 'Jenna, you're crazy.'" But we just did box breathing before we got started, and it was like watching shoulders from, like, here start to, like, go down, and so people were like, "Oh." I'm like, "Yep, just breathe." Like
Just breathe. Just breathe. And I mean, so many people, and I think about like corporate, and of course, not everybody in corporate's going to feel this way, but we're in a perpetual holding. Like we're in a perpetual state of fight, flight, freeze
Yeah,
all the time, most of us. And if we actually like zoom out, it didn't start at your corporate job. It didn't start here. Like it started when you were like, it actually started when you were in utero. It started with your mother's nervous system, which is a whole other podcast conversation.
yes, that, like, not everybody will be ready for, but when you go down
No,
that rabbit hole, there's a lot to take in, yeah.
there's so much. It's fascinating. And our breath then just out of like, okay, how can I support you meets you in that holding.
Yeah.
And so we have those short, like just enough breaths. And to give someone the opportunity to actually just feel an entire length of inhale and exhale and how their body almost immediately responds to that with a softening.
Yeah.
That alone is like such a gift to offer.
Yeah, and
And
I think
yeah.
it's an easier pathway for some people too than I know, I did a bunch of modalities to support to, like, help me through from, like, traditional, we'll call it, like, talk therapy,
Hmm.
therapist, to somatic breath work, to plant medicine, and I think everybody's kinda healing journey is different and what works for them,
Yeah.
but I think it's so funny when, and I even think it was yeah, I was at a session when someone's like, "I didn't even know the last time I've just, like, breathed for an hour," and you just start, like, howling because 'cause they're like, "Well, naturally you are breathing, but intentionally breathing is something very, very different." And I think now, especially with you add in stresses of, Vancouver and other cities are an expensive city to live, like, there is a means to you have to figure out a way to survive, like, there's a lot of external pressures, and then you walk into a job that's gonna be stressful, and I see so many people that rile situations up and create so much more chaos than they need to, and I was like, "This has nothing to do with anything." Like, if you just took a break and you just calmed your nervous system, solution's right here. Or, like, it's just not a big deal, and it's just nothing to, like, let it consume your day so you tailspin, and then you come home, and then you're lashing out at everybody else because 'cause you're been, like, locked and jarred in your body all day with, like, no sign of, Like, can I just take a break?
Yeah. Well, my partner and I were sitting on the deck this morning talking about the absolute healing power and complete neglect and almost like repelling energy that we have to nature.
Yep.
There's a reason Japanese doctors prescribe going for walks in the forest. They prescribe it.
Yep.
Think about that. We walked the dogs the other day through the forest and we both went barefoot. And it's like, yeah, we might look weird because we're in a city in a forest walking barefoot. But I mean, if you've done it, if you've sat in nature, you just know the power of nature. And to just like sit and watch a tree or watch the birds or watch a mountain and just watch it in its, maybe it's still, maybe it's moving, but like, it's okay. Like, it's not freaking out. It's okay. There's so much to, again, this is another rabbit hole that we can go, is probably maybe not for everybody, but the wisdom that nature has to share with us. I'll just leave that there. In our regulating our nervous system, in understanding the power of stillness, and understanding the power of connection and how we're all connected. Like, there's just so much.
Also used to be like, for her, she was like, the best cure is she's like, get your hands in the dirt. And for her with like gardening and like, it is that like touch or like stepping on fresh grass, stepping on sand, water. Like, you can't tell me, even if you're like, I'll call it like ice cold by nature and you haven't quite hit that yet, that if you kind of like walk into sunlight and your feet like sink in sand and water comes up, that you can't feel your body instantly go like, woof.
Exactly. Exactly.
But, and the same point, the disconnection of people taking those breaks. And so I'm curious too, because I would love to understand a bit more kind of about the training that you went through and your process through that, because we'll get in, and then after we'll get into we'll call it the world's in a very coach era. Then we'll talk into like, the bad and the ugly of also where we're at with all of that too.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it was kind of the training. And then how does it, I guess, kind of so people understand sort of what process you kind of are able to facilitate and kind of, we'll call it like, get that power to be able to do that.
Yeah. So the training that I went through, it was about a 2-year process. And the school that I went through was called Anew Somatics, and it's based out of Calgary with a man named Trevor. And it's like talking about a yoga teacher training. It's like, how do you even tease that apart? It's sort of one of those felt sense things where you're like, how do you put this into language? But we learn about the like history of the physiology of breath and how the body, breathes, of course. But the piece that I found really fascinating was, this goes back to the being in utero, is actually the time in utero and the entire birth experience and the patterns that develop in our system through that time and how that trickles into adult life. And so when we are working now with adult people, what patterns we might be looking for and how we can support them in, even with like affirmation or certain places of touch on the body. Part of that is learning also like body mapping and where emotions and energy lives in the body and how to make contact with those places and help to move that through. That I was just like, out of a 2-year program, that was a week. And I keep coming back to it. Like, that is the most profound, fascinating thing I've ever learned. We go into, trauma and how the trauma is held in the body and what trauma might look like and all of the ways in which we take on trauma as little humans and big humans. But more important than what trauma is as a facilitator, how to be with it. And really even more important than that, to understand your scope and what you're capable of being with. And having a team of professionals who you might have to actually step away from being a facilitator and shift your people over. And I want to talk about that a little bit because breathwork is becoming this really trendy thing that everyone's doing. I can get a little pissed about this.
Yeah.
It's borderline dangerous to me.
I agree.
And those of you who are seeking out breathwork facilitators, yay, love this for you. Do your research. Ask them questions. When someone, because and I felt the same way about fitness. I spent probably 2 years getting certified and continued my certification. It took me longer to become a breathwork facilitator than it would to become a police officer. That's insane. So there are weekend certifications. There are $150 online certifications to become a breathwork facilitator. Do your research, please, for the health and safety of yourself. So that felt important. And when I first entered the training and was learning all of these things and having such profound experiences myself as the breather, it was really easy for a fresh mind to take on this belief that like, oh, I have to be the healer. I have to know how to do all of these things with this person, because my facilitators were incredible and they held great space, and what they were doing was helping me process my own. They weren't doing anything. They were holding space with loving reverence for the capability and the wisdom of my body.
Yeah, which is a very magical situation for anybody who hasn't experienced it. And when you have it, you're like, oh, I had no idea space could be created in terms of where I have full safety in all facets.
Yes. And I'm actually I'm in the midst of finishing the first module, but I'm launching a breathwork teacher training for January, because I was getting so fired up about trainings that I don't feel good about being out, being facilitated by people that I don't believe have good morals and values. Not all of them. Let me be clear. There are some incredible breath facilitators out there. My God.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that we're adding to those. So,
well, it's like anything now with research and like fitness. I mean, there's so much information overload, like do this or like buy this and you'll look like this. Like, that's not going to happen. Like,
no.
why are you feeding that message? And then especially with breath work, and especially, you know, for people coming in a very vulnerable state, to be taken advantage in something that's supposed to be a safe practice. Like, I can think, like, let's not re-traumatize people and further distance themselves from wanting to heal, because now nobody feels safe.
Totally. And like, not everybody that comes to you for breath work is going to be suitable for breath work. If somebody's in a highly activated state and they're like, I just need to do some breath work to move this out, that is quite likely not at all what they need. What they actually probably need to do is to go sit on the grass.
Yeah.
That's probably what they need to do. So yeah, really having the ability to discern what is the best practice. They might just need some resourcing. They might need some containment, some grounding, some nervous system regulation. And maybe in a couple of weeks of that, maybe we can step into a breathwork practice, but really discerning, am I able to support this person? Is breathwork actually the right modality for them at this time? Do I need to refer them to somebody else? And having no ego about any of that. My best move as a facilitator potentially might be not serving somebody breath. You spoke up about what's the moment of reclaiming the power, or how do we reclaim the power? I think for me, and maybe it's not even through breathwork. A lot of the time it comes through plant medicine, but psychedelic plant medicine and breathwork all really kind of they hang out in the same zone. And again, it's this hard to explain with English language, but a felt sense of all of a sudden acknowledging that, oh, I actually don't need anything. I don't need anything outside of myself. All of those things I've been seeking, all of the answers, all of the permission, all of the this and that and that and this that I've been seeking externally, the love, the whatever, I don't need it. It's that moment that you feel it. And those are always my favorite, because at the end of every breathwork session, there's always a sharing circle. And this happens often, where at least one person in the session is like, I just feel like full of love and like I just have it all. Like I just have everything I need. I just have it. And they look like a different person. And I didn't do that. I didn't do that. I created a space for them, but they did that. They trusted themselves to go into their breath. They trusted the expression of their body. They trusted the expression of their emotions. They trusted themselves to stay with themselves for that time and to allow whatever wants to come through. And when we do that, that sense of self-love, sense of self-connection, self-power, that comes through. And it's from that place when we're so deeply connected to self, that to me is reclaiming your power. And that then in the real world looks like making your own decisions and not falling for what society wants you to do because everyone else wants to do it, but like actually deciding for you based on what is true for you. And that might be totally leaving all of your family values behind. It might be very uncomfortable.
For sure.
But that is power. It's living your life the way you want to live it and not for other people. That might look like moving country, moving house, leaving a job, leaving a relationship, starting a job, starting a relationship, taking a leap, going back to university, starting the business, chopping your hair off, shaving your head, doesn't matter. It's doing the thing that you, like center of you wants. That's reclaiming your power.
And I think there's like an unapologeticness about it, because when I hit that point, it's a world. As soon as you had that feeling, you will step out that door and someone's like, well, why aren't you married? Or like, why can't you find a good guy? Or like, are you sure you don't want to have kids? You'd be such a great mom. And like, what are you? And you're like, whoa. And you get like confronted with it right away. I remember being like, yikes, like this is really interesting. And so it's also getting comfortable saying like, no, I'm actually really happy. So like, imagine if you could just like pick up and do whatever you want when you want, and you just got to do things that make you happy. But because you grew up with this is how your life is supposed to look, this is what you think everybody should do. But a lot of people I find are generally quite miserable and trying to pull you into their misery too, because to step outside of that would mean fundamentally dismantling everything that they've been told to believe.
Totally.
And so you talk about like, you can't go back in the box once you know you can't unknow those things. I'm like, man, like what would happen from a domino effect? You look at people so stuck in it and you're like, but you're so unhappy. At what point, we were like, is that break point where you're like, this is not it. So what am I going to choose that's going to break me out of this box?
Yeah, it's a radical act. And I am here for like, this world needs a radical shift. I think we all agree. And like, it starts with us, like be the change that like one of the most brilliant spiritually led humans, like be the change you want to see in the world. That's not just like a pretty quote that you put on your wall. Like legitimately it starts here. And so that domino effect, yeah, led by pure, sovereign, love-centered beings. Yeah, I'm here for that domino effect. I'm here for it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, because there's a lot of challenges, and I was at a conference summit and Scott Galloway was talking about the challenges with men right now, and especially like young men coming up and feeling so disconnected, and that women are outperforming them in every single category at this point. And so, you have a bunch of women also vying after a smaller and smaller percentage of men that are grounded, mature, empowered, doing all these things. And then they're feeling so disconnected from really stepping into their masculine, leading, getting help, finding community. And so I'm curious kind of from the connection of like you kind of maybe focusing on more the women's side, if your partner kind of focuses more on the men's side, and like how do we create the coming together? Because the world really feels like it is pushing an us versus them and, stepping away. And I'm in lots of conversations with men who are starting that journey, or you can see that there's so much disconnect that somebody who's kind of in their power is terrifying for them. So they're going to stay clear of that because they want, what's easy to pick up. So how do you go about like facilitating that coming together?
I really love this conversation. There's such division still. And I believe, like, yes, I predominantly work with women because honestly, that's who generally is doing this type of work.
Yep.
That's shifting. Thank God. It's so beautiful to watch. But I honestly believe that the way that we fix this is to sit ceremony together all the time. It's to hold each other in the work fiercely. Like these men, I have chills. I have such a soft spot for men. I only know what life has been like for a woman because I'm a woman. And I can only imagine what life has been like for men. And I might have women who hate me for saying this, and that's okay. Yeah, everyone's like, we hate the patriarchy. So do a lot of men, okay? Yeah. Like, so do a lot of men. Like, we're in a fucked up system, and the only way through this is together. We cannot do this separately. We can't do it without each other. Men need women, and women need men.
100%.
We need community. We need to remember that we are the same. We are, and I mean that as like humans. Like you and I are the same. Me and George Clooney. Don't know why that came to my mind. Happy about it, super babe. We're the same. Like we're all the same. And when I hurt, you hurt. And when you heal, I heal. And that goes for everybody. And so until we're sitting in ceremonies, until we're sitting in circles, until we're having conversations, until we're opening our heart and being humans with each other, I don't know that this is ever going to change. And so for the men or the boys or whoever are feeling like, oh, that woman's like in her power, I don't know that I can be there. A woman who's actually in her power is open-hearted, and he would never be intimidated by her, ever. because she is like grounded, open heart, like mother energy. You just want to flock to her. A
Yeah.
woman in her power is not like, I'm boss bitch. Like that's not a woman in her power. That's
Yeah.
a woman on a power trip. But a woman in her power is like anchored, 2 feet on the ground, heart is wide open, and she knows that we're the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do you, I guess, the challenges is what I see is like the invite into being vulnerable, and still definitely because there is that push of like men shouldn't be weak, they shouldn't cry, they shouldn't share much, they should be tough. Or if they're maybe brought up and on the like different end of the spectrum and hyper emotional and hyper vulnerable, and then get perceived a different way. Again, it's like there's so many combating ideologies of like, here's who you should show up as and here's what's acceptable. But I think now when I watch different relationship dynamics, it's so interesting to watch of an acceptance of this like surface level connection that doesn't invite more or less than, but allows you to just exist and not go any further. Because to do that again is that fear of, I could never do that. Or my favorite thing is when people, I'm like, oh, have you ever talked to somebody about that? Or like, would you ever try this? Just out of curiosity. They're like, I'm good. I don't need that. I don't need to talk to anybody. I'm like, yeah, I was that girl once where I'm like, I'm fine. It's fine. Like, if I say I'm fine, I was definitely not.
Right.
That's the word I'm using. Like, you need to ask me another question.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. What do they say? Fine is feelings internally not expressed.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not okay.
Yeah. Yeah, like clue to like me number one. That would be it. And if you're like, okay, great, walk the other direction, I'm like, can't you see? Like,
Yeah. Totally. Totally. What was the question?
yeah, sorry, I got like distracted. But kind of, how can people go about, to sit in the ceremony? And again, like even saying that to some people sounds like foo-foo, very, hippie stuff until you've actually done it. And it's just like, let's, gather and hang out, however you want to phrase it, depending on, how it invites people. They feel like there's still a lot of fear around that. So I'm curious to like, what's maybe the baby step approach for people to start building that and like creating more of that within the space? And I say like, as I've gotten older, I've definitely created my people around me that are growing and evolving in big discussions. And I always say like when I meet somebody and if their second question to me is, so what do you do? I'm always like, oh, that's such a bummer question. Like, can we think about like something else to ask, or like what lights you up, or like what are you doing here, and like what's exciting to you right now? I'm like, so much more engaging. But like again, it's kind of still propelling that of like that really closeted, distant culture versus trying to bring somebody in and actually like, I see you, I want to know you. So how do we kind of encourage people to like break out of that more?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, and in terms of ceremony, it's like, or dinner, have people over for dinner, sit around a dinner table, sit around the living room, sit together, be together.
Yeah.
Without phones would be great.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the key is curiosity.
Yeah.
I do. It's like what you said, like, what lights you up? And then the follow-up question, oh, tell me more about that. Like, be curious, go deeper. Don't let them answer one word, or let them answer one word, and then ask another deepening question. And then when you've asked the question, can you just remain present and listen? Don't interrupt them, not even to acknowledge that you agree. Like, not even like, oh, yeah, man, me too, me too. Don't even do that. Just be a listener and be there, like be really curious and interested. And I think the more we can ask a question and then ask like a deepening question, they're going to feel safe because you're holding that presence for them, and you're actually going to get somewhere with them. Generally, we answer very surface. How you doing? Oh, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, what's been, what was the best part of the week? Oh, well, my dog did this really cute thing. Tell me about that. And then you go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and then you actually get somewhere eventually. I think that
It is commitment.
yeah, it might take you a while, but you're going to get somewhere. And I think that might be it. And in terms of like, sitting in circle or ceremony or at dinner, like maybe start with a small group.
Yeah.
Start with a small group. If your group of friends is totally not used to this and you're close enough, you can say like, hey, I'm trying this thing. I'm trying this thing. I want to, like, I feel like I'm just like surface and shallow, and I'm really kind of tired of it, actually. Like, I'm just going to try this thing. Like, play with me, if you will. Just ask them. Just ask for what you want.
Which is a whole other topic, which takes very well to get used to in terms of like feeling okay, of really asking for you want versus agreeing with what's been given to you.
Yeah.
And I guess, sometimes I find it like disheartening, but also exciting. And people's, you're comfortable asking those questions. I'm not. I'm like, well, are you not comfortable asking them? Or are you not comfortable answering them?
It's a good question.
And I'm like, because it's different. And I said, you can context, but why wouldn't you want to know more about somebody? Or why do you just accept that level of behavior is okay rather than understanding, like, where is this coming from? And then eventually you get to a point like, do you want to change this? Do you want to like show up better? Or are you really committed to this way of being? Because if you are, cool, I choose not to be a part of it then because it's not good for me. But I think, again, it comes back to that like conventional way of thinking of, well, if this is okay and I can operate within this context and society tells me this is really okay and it gets promoted on all these different levels, we should just stay as it is.
Yeah.
Rock that boat.
Yeah. And then, then the conversation of we can't force anyone. We can't shift someone's journey forward because we want it to match ours. So then the idea of like non-attachment and full permission and acceptance of what is, and just showing up again, coming back to that, like, be the change, coming back to showing up the way that we want to show up, and just trusting that those who are going to meet you are going to meet you, and those who aren't, they'll drift, and that's okay. And that's a tough one, especially if you're in a relationship and you're like, but I want this person to come with me. Yeah. And
our fixer-upper project girl. So I get it. It took me a while to like, this is
same.
Not my job.
Yeah, same. Mm-hmm.
It takes a little while to let go of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's a lot of work. The self-work journey it's never ending. To be very clear, it doesn't stop. No,
you just have plateaus where you're like, wow, and you can kind of like, you hang out there for a little bit because like, I'm just going to enjoy this new level I've unlocked. And then something happens and you're like, oh, here we go again. And then kind of go up again. And then you enjoy that spot. I'm like, it's kind of like a video game. You just kind of keep unlocking new levels.
Totally. Yeah.
And, you get too comfortable when things are like too good for too long. You're like, something's like, something's going to go down here. That's going to allow me to either like, again, grow, or I'm going to go back maybe a couple steps and then have to go forward again. But you get, you get knocked down and you figure it out.
Totally. Yeah.
And so in terms of, the workshops you do and the style, do you focus, are the groups, kind of different than the one-offs, or kind of how did you go about approaching how you wanted to create, communities with women, and kind of, I'll call it like individual work versus group work?
When I first was coming out, sort of like midway through my training and then kind of coming towards the end, in my mind, I was like, I'm only going to do group stuff. Like, one-on-one intimidates me. It's so personal. I'm just going to do group stuff. And the first probably year of my work was only one-on-ones. It was like I had so many people being like, can I come for a breathwork session? Can I come for a breathwork session? Which was perfect. It was like exactly what I needed. And so the one-on-one sessions are very different than a group session. We have so much more time to drop in and ask a ton of questions. And I get to be, really familiar with what's going on for you. And again, part of my training is really, yes, you're obviously listening to the person's words, but you're also like visually listening to their body. And you're noticing when they're like, yeah, I'm totally fine. But they're like twitching or ruffling around and all of a sudden really uncomfortable. And then again, the curiosity piece comes in, and okay, I notice when you said X that this happens. Tell me a little bit about what that is. What is that? And so we can go quite deep in a one-on-one. And then with that information that we've talked about, we can take that into a breathwork journey. And, truthfully, nobody ever knows what's going to happen in a breathwork journey, but there's already information shared. There's already a connection made. And so I can then ask like, okay, tell me what's coming up here right now. And then we can use affirmation. We can use maybe some sound or some movement exercises, fill in the blank there. And, it's nice to be tended to really personally. And that can even be such a healing piece, is actually just having someone tend to you and love you and shower you with pretty smells and beautiful touch. And then the group sessions, I think I prefer them in the sense that the energy often is just bigger and bolder. And not always. Sometimes it's quite chill. Like our session was quite chill, which was needed. That was the energy that was needed. But what I find in group sessions, and this is where, like, speaking of like men and women coming together, because we did have a man in that session.
Yeah, shout out to him being the only one in that group. Yeah.
I was so happy because he wasn't on my list. And when he walked in, I was so happy.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm like, yes. I'm like, I'm glad. And then I was trying to figure out, I'm like, did he come solo? Is he here with somebody? I have so many questions.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
But when we're in a group, it creates that, it like breaks the barrier of we are different, because the sharing starts to happen and you can hear yourself and other people, and everyone's like, oh yeah, I get that. There's it softens the idea that I am separate then, and it really starts to bring we really are just the same. And then if someone's having an emotional experience, 9.5 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, it acts as a permission for the person who was resisting their emotional experience to then be in their emotional experience. And it's so permission giving. And, when we do anything in group, the level of healing or growth or expansion, it skyrockets. And so I really love the energy that comes from group sessions. And I love the intimacy that comes from private sessions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you do all of them in person and virtual, or do you so both? So how does a group work virtual from like a connection perspective as a facilitator?
So, good old Zoom. We start the same, with like open shares. We don't do introductions because everyone can see their name, obviously, on a Zoom screen. But it creates space for some checking in. How is everyone arriving? Is there anything that you're really needing? I ask like if anyone's working with a mantra or affirmation, or is there something that would be really nice to hear right now? Get that all in the chat so that I have cues to bring into the practice.
Yeah.
I usually pull a card, and then there's some sharing about that. We drop into session, and then we open the sharing circle after. And it's like a lot of the time, especially because my online breathwork sessions are inside of my breath membership. So like it's a lot of the same people coming. So they've created a really beautiful team, family. I was, when I thought about hosting online, I was pretty resistant to it. I'm like, I just don't think it's the same. And it has been so beautiful and so powerful. And I've been on the receiving end of online sessions and have had some of my most powerful sessions with a facilitator online. So I think it works because like the intention of the people who show up is true. And if we're showing up with a heart open, it doesn't matter if we're on a Zoom screen, a telephone, in person, at a coffee shop, the intention to connect is there.
Yeah, for sure. And do you notice kind of any sort of interesting, maybe like recurring themes or like common challenges that you see keep kind of rising that is uniting people, but is clearly, obviously, it may be a bit of an indication of like a broader problem sort of collectively, like people are facing?
There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of anger in women. Again, that's who I'm mostly seeing right now.
Yeah.
Which I think is great. I think anger is totally great. Like big change comes from a really pissed off woman. So yeah, there's a lot of anger and fear right now, which I just think it's all really great. And so coming into a session like breathwork where you can actually release that rather than building it up, give yourself space to feel it and release it.
Yeah.
Most importantly, to feel it, because so many of us resist feeling certain feelings for numerous reasons. So having a space that you can go that gives you the permission to actually feel your feeling is important. That's a really important piece of being human.
And from a group perspective and kind of creating that, for like the cadence in which you do that, what is the cadence? Is it like monthly? Is it weekly when you join groups to kind of have consistency, or sort of what did you kind of create to make it sort of impactful? But also I realized as you start to do things, it's kind of like learning a new habit, right? Of like, whether it's meditation, breath work, or again, just kind of sitting in stillness, what is sort of kind of the practice that you found that really works for people when they kind of start working with you?
So I offer 2 sessions a month online, so kind of bi-weekly.
Yeah.
And for someone who's really new, I suggest just once a month is great. And then, most of the people come twice. They come twice a month.
Yeah.
There's also, if I'm being really honest, you can overdo it. Like it's like ayahuasca. Someone's like, "Oh, I've done 77 ayahuasca ceremonies." I'm like, "And when have you integrated?
Yeah.
At what point have you integrated the teachings?" Like, too much can be too much. There's this like chasing the self-growth, self-healing journey.
Your big boof moment.
Yeah,
and like,
totally.
I should go do another one of those. Like, take some time.
Yeah. Let that land. Just simmer in that. But twice a month would not be too much. So that's sort of my max. And then, I have private clients who might even do those 2 sessions and still have a session. And so we won't always breathe in those sessions. It might be more like integration and teasing apart what's come up. But
Yeah.
I would say more than twice a month I've had clients who have done weekly for a short, couple of weeks in a row. I wouldn't do that long term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be worthwhile because it's funny when I bring up breathwork to certain people, or people are like, "Oh yeah, it's not where you just like break down and bawl your eyes out crying and you don't know why." And I start howling. Like, you might have that reaction. So I'd love to kind of for you to get some context about sort of reactions, what to expect, but then also like you also might just feel really peaceful after. And like, I think people go in again with like the instant gratification culture, like, okay, I'm going to do this breathwork session. I'm going to get it all out, and then I'm going to have this big thing, and then I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. Would love it if that's how it worked. Your body is an intelligence that your cute little mind will never understand.
Nope.
Your body is an intelligence, as is a plant medicine an intelligence. And so you don't actually get to choose nor control what is going to happen. You are given what you need, always, like you are with life. And so when you attend a breathwork session, it is possible that you might have a big emotional cathartic release, and it might feel awesome. And you might know exactly what you're emotional about. And you also might not, because we carry so much in these bodies that don't belong to us. We carry stuff from our mothers, our great grandmothers, our whole lineage. We carry stuff from the world. We hold so much. And so there has been many sessions that I've been in and had a huge emotional release that I had no actual emotional connection to.
Yeah.
It wasn't mine. And I let it move through anyways. You might come to a breathwork session and not have emotions, but have like crazy tingles and sensations, or you might feel like you actually can't move your body because you're just dead weight to the ground. You might tremor and shake. That is your body's natural way, primal way, just like animals, to discharge trauma, to discharge energy, to discharge stuckness, frozen energy, which is such a gift. Like, yay, that our bodies can do that. And again, with that, you probably don't have any emotional connection to it. Your body will just be discharging. You spoke earlier about having, I think you did, unless it was another time we talked, about having tears coming out of your eyes and just, like liquid and tears, but there might not be emotion. Again, that's the body's way of discharging energy, yawning, sweating, temperature change, tremors, twitches, sound. It might be really fun to make sound out of your throat. You might come to a breathwork session and have the most still, stoic, meditative, beautiful session. There's a rainbow of possibilities. There might be pleasure. You might orgasm. There might be grief. You might, rage, frustration, jealousy, fear, playfulness, giddiness, all of it. All of every emotion, every possible human emotion that lives in your body could surface. And when we drop into these breath practices, we're accessing the subconscious spaces in our body, much like a psychedelic, much like a plant medicine. And again, coming back to the wisdom and the intelligence of your body, what is ready to be surfaced and cleared will come up. What is not ready won't come up. And so with like really intense type A, like I'm going to come in and I'm going to totally smash this session and I'm going to get it all out. They often will have a really still, quiet, meditative session where they're like, oh, nothing happened. But then 2 seconds later, they're like, wow, I haven't been so, I don't even know the last time I was this relaxed. Huh. Do you think maybe that's what you needed? That's what your body was like. I just want to remind them of what stillness feels like. I want my nervous system to relax for just a hot minute. We are always given exactly what we need. So all of it is available, all of it is possible. And I have no idea what will happen for you when you come into a session.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And I want to touch on too, as people start to look into that, or maybe they've had an experience and they're like, something was maybe a little bit off about that session. So I'd love to hear from you in terms of kind of looking at a facilitator and breathwork in general, and obviously doing research, but what would you consider kind of like green flags and then red flags?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. I'm trying to not have my like personal judgments in here. Okay. Red flag is someone who is claiming that they can like fix something. If the word fix is in there, walk away. No, there's nothing to be fixed.
Yeah.
But someone who's making like a claim that some big profound change will happen.
Right.
It can. If they use the word may or can, it's possible. Okay, that's not red. But if it's like, this is going to happen, they're not in control. They're not Jesus. They can't do that.
Yeah.
God, I'm having like visuals of like who I'm like,
I
that's
know,
a red
I'm like,
flag. That's a red flag. That's a red flag, but it might be a total green flag for someone. How do you feel when you're in their energy? If you enjoy watching their, like if you've found this person on social media and you really actually, you like feel good watching their stuff and they're offering a session, yeah, try it. If somebody is like, hey, there's this awesome breathwork facilitator, you should come, and you meet them or you see them online and you're like, oh, I don't know, don't. It's a feeling thing, because what I deem like hard no's, and there are facilitators that I'm like, that is a hard no for me. I know people who love them, love their facilitation. It's a feeling thing. It is. But again, if someone is like guaranteeing that they can do something, they can't. That would be my only red flag.
For sure.
You are, as the person breathing, or I keep referring to psychedelics because it's just the same. It's the same world. You are the healer. You are the one. You are the one. So if anyone at any point is like, I am the one. Yeah.
And I always think from like a women perspective, because I've known a couple people who have experience with male facilitators about touching. And they'd be like, oh, there was no request or like asked to consent to like touch him, like touch your body. And I was like, no, like that's all your choice and your power. And if you say yes and then it's a no, then it's a no. Like,
yes. And so this is exactly why I was like, okay, so I'm going to run a teacher training, because this is bullshit. And it's happening all too often. And it's not okay. It's not okay even like man to man or woman to woman. Like there always has to be consent. There just always does. We, especially opening a portal like breathwork where someone's tenderness is what I'll call it, could surface. And let's say you go to touch them on the shoulder, but they have been, maybe they were mugged and they were ripped back by the shoulder, and you go to touch them on their shoulder because that seems like a safe place to you. No. So consent, no matter who you are. And if someone is in a situation and consent wasn't asked for, or it was asked for and then ignored, like, please take this as permission to like stop the session for yourself. You don't have to like cause a scene, but you can stop the session and be like, I'm complete. Thank you. And leave if you need to, or sit up and do not participate if someone has crossed your line.
Yeah. I think it's just important. I want to reiterate, because what somebody's experience and what they deemed okay for them may not be okay for you.
Exactly.
And to be really aware of that, because again, there's not professions, there's not like an accreditation or a college you're going back to and there's a complaint process and like they'll no longer be able to practice. So it is unfortunately a world right now where a lot of lines can be crossed. And so being able to, I think, understand what the process looks like, what's allowed, not allowed, and also I think again, people standing up if there's really bad issues. Like those people need to be called out and held accountable in whatever form
Yeah,
possible.
totally. And there is the International Breathwork Foundation. And if somebody has connected their business to that, then you can,
Oh, that's good to know. I didn't know that. Yeah.
but not everybody connects to that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is an overarching, you know what I'm trying to say? There is a body. Whether or not somebody wants to connect to that is a different story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what is the thing that you're working on right now that you're most excited about in terms of what you're up to?
Okay, two things. One I've already spoken about, but the
Yeah.
School of Breath Medicine is going to be my breathwork training, and it will be launching in January. It's going to be a year-long mentorship,
Oop.
hybrid, online and in person. I am so excited, and I resisted that just like I resisted going to breathwork. I was like, "Oh, I don't do that." I had people
Yep.
asking me for years, "Do you do breath trainings? Do you teach like teachers?" I'm like, "No, no, 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 no." Finally, I was like, "Okay, why am I
What
being
you
asked this?"
resist persists.
It persists. So once I committed to it, I was like, oh, this is going to be so good. So that's very exciting right now. Also, very exciting is I am launching a masterclass series inside of my breathwork membership.
Mhm.
It's going to go all year, new masterclass every month. And the intention of it is really deepening into the power of the feminine and feminine energetics and our healing and our connection and our like to each other and to spirit and to this life and the healing in it and all of the pieces that make us this human and with the foundation of somatics and breathwork. So that is launching in June.
Yeah.
And yeah, those are the two that are lighting me up right now.
I love it. And so we're going to do kind of rapid fire question close to get some things from you. And then we'll loop back and make sure everybody knows how to reach out to you if they want to connect in with you.
Okay.
Given what you do and a lot of light, but also a lot of dark, what's kind of your go-to practice to sort of kind of keep you grounded?
Meditate. I meditate every day.
And is there a meditation style or practice that really helps you release kind of what's no longer yours from those days?
Right now, I'm listening to Joe Dispenza.
Love him. Yeah.
Who doesn't? And I'm doing like 20 minutes a day. And I have this like inner knowing that I need and want like an hour long.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I am meditating right now, but there's this part of me that's like, do it more, do it more, do it more. So Joe Dispenza right now, my partner and I are actually going to be going to a transcendental meditation training. So that's going to be our next evolution of meditation. So stay tuned. Yeah, but that's my answer.
Love it. What would be a book or resource that you would want to share that like profoundly kind of impacted or inspired your journey?
Conversations with God.
It's on my list. That's like, it's come up a couple times and I haven't.
Girl.
Yeah, but I have like all these other books. So like everything, I'm like, okay, I gotta get it. Okay.
Do the audiobook for sure. It's like 27 hours. It's a 3-book series. Book 1 is definitely the best, but yeah, unreal.
Awesome. What advice would you give to somebody who's currently feeling like really disconnected from their inner power?
I'd start with curiosity, but I would ask how much time, if any, are they spending in solitude and silence with themselves? Maybe with a pen and paper and just asking, why do I feel this way? What is the feeling? Like just ask and ask and ask and ask and ask and ask and ask. And I say that because we are just living in such an overstimulated, full, busy world that we miss our own knowledge. We miss our own wisdom because we're inundated with everyone else's.
Yeah. I had to learn that I could rationalize and logically explain everything. And I remember my therapist like, Jenna, I would just like, no, I don't want to, what is happening in your body? What are you feeling right now? Like, what's the feeling? And I was like, like,
what do you mean?
I think I need to, I'm like, am I okay? Like, is there something happening? Took me a little while to figure that one out.
I get it. I get it.
How would you define success now in your personal and professional life?
The ability to be present and grateful for what I have here and now without wanting for more.
And then in your own words, what does built for this mean to you?
Okay, built for this to me is like, it comes back to that like radical, like active self-love, respect, remembrance that this life we're in, it wasn't supposed to be like smooth and flawless, but I believe it is supposed to be easeful when in alignment. And we all too often as humans have this feeling or story that like, oh, I can't do it. I can't do that. I can't do it. You were literally built for this. Like your soul was like, I want that life. Like literally built for this. Even if you're in the middle of chaos right now, you were built for this. Yeah, so do I.
And so in terms of people hear this, they want to work with you, they're curious about their memberships, what's the best way to learn more, connect with you so that they can hopefully enter into a little more self-discovery and peace?
Oh, I would love that. So I'm mostly on Instagram. It's Breathwork with Kyla. And my website is kylagagnon.com. And both of those tend to be as updated as I can possibly make them be. I am going to send you the link for the Rebirth, which is the masterclass happening in June. And through that, you just automatically get access to the membership. So
Perfect.
it's kind of a twofer.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on today and being open, vulnerable, completely yourself and showcasing exactly what it means to kind of step into your power and then also build something that directly correlates to your heart and why you're here. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. It's been fun.